Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today, I have a friend with me. Jeff, can I call you my friend?
Absolutely, you can call me friend.
I was just thinking that sounded awkward, but I'm going to go with it. Let's just do it.
Yes,
so
let's go
it's
with it.
like, I'm thinking of like an episode of like Sesame Street, where you kind of walk over and I'm like, let me introduce you to my friend, Jeff.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
But no, for everyone out there watching and listening, I have the one, the only, the oh so famous Mr. General Motors Jeff in the house. Jeff, what's up?
I wish, first of all, I wish I was famous. That would be fantastic. Secondly, it's been way too long, man. It's been a long time since I've been able to jam with you on here. And so I've been looking forward to this, and I'm glad that our times meshed where we can actually talk for a bit about some automotive industry stuff and have some
fun. Because there's so much to talk about. I was thinking like it was winter last year. I think last time we really kind of chatted, or we were face to face with each other, right?
Yeah.
So it was just it's nice to be like, hey, it's snowing outside. You got a bunch of white stuff on the ground up there too?
We do, and it was minus 21 when I left this morning for work.
Minus 21.
So we're winter now. We're winter.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you snowmobile into the dealership, or do you drive?
Yeah. You know what? Actually, funny, we just had a post the other day. Three of the techs snowmobiled in
Right.
on what day was that? Thursday or Friday of last week. So I actually technically could, but it's too much of a hassle for me.
Well, that's for everybody else that's listening to the podcast who realize that we're in Canada and they all think we live in igloos and we drive snowmobiles into work. And that's true, we do. We all live in igloos.
It's pretty close.
We drive snowmobiles into work. But hey,
just filling right into the stereotype.
We're just gonna go straight into it, 100%. Hey, Jeff, for everybody out there watching, listening, and maybe don't know much about you or how you got started in the industry, let's kick off the podcast with a little origin story because, I'm always fascinated. What is the origin story of General Motors Jeff?
So were you like putting a segue with the snowmobile aspect? Because that's obviously where my industry actually, or my foray, I guess you would call it, into the retail industry came from, because my father owned a Yamaha dealership, power sports dealership. So I've been around motors my whole life. That's where I started. We ended up selling the dealership, and I was, I had a new house, new wife, new baby. And I was going, okay, well, what am I going to do now that is, somewhat relative? And I thought, well, the automotive industry makes sense. Little did I know that as much as, you would think it'd be similar, it is absolutely not that similar. I mean, maybe the retail aspect and talking to people is, but I was very humbled when I first got in the industry in terms of, especially going to General Motors, because as many of you know, especially in the automotive industry, man, there's a lot of lines that we have, a lot to know, a lot of product, aside from just learning the ins and outs of the automotive industry. But I loved it. I love the challenge. I'm going to be hitting 9 years in the automotive industry and at the same dealership, Pro Chevrolet in Sault Ste. Marie, this March. And then I've obviously taken a liking to the social media side of things, and also forayed over now into the YouTube and creating a specific automotive, General Motors, more so truck automotive YouTube channel. But yeah, it all started from working at a dealership that my dad owned, and transitioned over to the automotive industry, and here I am. And I don't have any plans of getting out of this industry in one way or one form or another, whether or not be the dealership or not, but definitely want to stay within the automotive industry. I love the people, and I just love vehicles. So
it definitely sounds like you got gasoline in the blood there, bud.
Yeah. I don't have a choice. I was literally born into it. So,
well, for people out there that do know you, and they've followed along with your content journey, and you've had a really cool content journey. I think like most people, they're not 100% sure what they're going to create when they get into it. They get super nervous about people's reaction or lack of engagement. So man, I'd love to kind of, walk us through a little bit about your content journey, how it started, how you kind of got to this place. And then I want to deep dive into some do's and don'ts, because I feel like you've fumbled your kind of way through it, like any good content creator does, right? And you've learned what to do and a little bit of what not to do, but kind of set the stage of kind of how it all got started for you.
So it took a few years, and mainly, again, like I just said off the top, man, it was a lot of product to know, a lot of, ways to navigate how this industry works. And so I didn't get much into social media because I didn't feel like I had, and that was more of a personal thing. I just didn't feel like I had a lot to offer initially because I didn't know my stuff. And I very much pride myself on wanting to know as much as I can. Now, I kind of wish that I started earlier and just learned as I went along. I think there's some authenticity to that. People can relate to that. As long as you're honest with what you're doing, you're not giving wrong information. You could be doing a walk around and like, I don't know this aspect, but I'll put it in the comments below when I find out, or, whatever. And I think there's some authenticity to that. So started out with Facebook because I just felt that was the best platform with which to reach people locally. I live in a smaller community. So, whether I did Instagram TikTok wasn't a thing when I started a few years ago. Not as big as it is now, at least anyways. And so Facebook is where I started. I got encouraged by a coworker who just said, you got to start doing social media. He's very much involved in our analytics at the dealership. His name is Trevor Seabrook. Great guy. And he basically said, you got to start doing this. So I went out and I did a video on a 2018 Chevy Traverse, just to walk around and talk about price and all that kind of stuff, put it on my Facebook, and I got some pretty good Facebook page that I created, by the way, and I got some pretty decent interaction from it. And so I decided, hey, maybe I'll do some more of this. And like you said, I kind of learned as I went along. I was very fortunate, again, to have this gentleman at the dealership because he kind of knew some of the ins and outs of Facebook in terms of the analytical side and things you should do and you shouldn't do, which, again, we can talk about. But yeah, so I started with the Facebook thing. Branched a little bit. I still do, a little bit on Instagram. But I feel like if you're a salesperson, Facebook is definitely the way to go.
For sure.
And then I, all these videos I started doing on Facebook, I just kind of uploaded up onto YouTube, just kind of as a library. Like I wasn't learning how to do it. And again, mainly because, these walk around videos, yeah, sure, they're great for people to see and learn some things from, but it wasn't really gaining me sales necessarily on YouTube simply because it was, majority of and it's still to this day, the majority of my viewership is like 95% from the United States. Well, they can even buy from me if they want to, let alone, not being close to where I live necessarily. So that was just a library to put things that's grown, and we can talk about that as well. But so Facebook is where I started, and we can certainly,
man, that's cool. And I love the fact that you said Facebook, because I think for a lot of people out there, when they're thinking of creating, their brand with the intent of business developing their way into deals, is they do think, it's big and wide. And the cool thing with Facebook is that Facebook is very, very local. All right. Right. Even if you're running ads on Facebook, or even just the way their algorithm is designed is to target local companies before anything else. So I think that's a good point. And Instagram doesn't seem to be as much of that. It's definitely broader. It feels, right? It's more broader than local, right? I feel Facebook is very local.
It's more short,
right?
Like really short form. It's more, I find that there's a little less interaction with Instagram as I do on Facebook. I don't know what it is about Facebook, but I feel people will watch videos longer. They go there to find more information. I don't necessarily ever say, I'm going to go to Instagram to find out about this vehicle. I absolutely will go, I want to see who's selling. I want to see what, hours the dealership is open. I want to see, about a certain vehicle. I would definitely go to Facebook 9 times out of 10 over Instagram. And I find that, when that's the content I'm providing, which is informative as well as educational as well as, entertaining, I hope, that's the area I would go to. So I figured that that's the area that most other people are going to go to as well.
We're going to get in big trouble for calling it Facebook, right?
Oh, Meta. Yeah.
I was just thinking about this. I was just like, wait a second. I just got off a podcast with Bob Lanham. I totally messing this up. We keep calling it. Okay,
well, it was Facebook at the time, so I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to go with that. It was Facebook at the time. Yeah. But you know what, though? I do think, when I think of Facebook, I do kind of think of it as Meta. Okay, when I think of Meta, all right, I do kind of think of it as kind of like that local pub. It's that one that was like really, really cool to go to. You enjoyed going to it for a fair amount of time. And yes, you may have broken off and tried some other places. All right. But you still come back to it You just, you know, that's that local spot where you always kind of come back to it's your go-to. And I think for anybody out there that's going to get into content game, I think it's a great place to start. Now let's talk a little bit about some do's and don'ts. So let's do this because I love storytelling. So give me a story of something that you did that you really wish you didn't do.
So that's the one thing I've been super careful about. And actually, I can, again, thank the gentleman that kind of started me off on this. And just before we go too far, I also have to throw some love your way, simply because you're one of the first people that ever reached out to me once I started doing it that really, again, encouraged me to keep going on what I'm doing. And it was great to have somebody, you know, outside of our own dealership and somebody who was very well versed in the automotive industry to help me out with that. So again, I got to thank you for that. And this is why I love doing these talks with you. But, yeah, I mean, I think, wow. I'm trying to think. And by no means am I perfect, but nothing really stands out, which is good, just because I've been careful. But I can say some things not to do, because I've seen some other people that have done these. And one of them is, do not talk about politics. I've stayed out of the COVID situation, you know, all that kind of stuff, the political conversation, you stay out of that. You know, and the one thing I can say that I think a lot of people make a mistake on is they make their page, their business page, if they do that way, almost too professional. And so what I mean by that is, you know, they're trying to mimic the automotive manufacturer maybe they work for. It's not allowing people to see who they really are. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I think people make. And it's not not that anything bad is going to happen to you, but it's just not going to help you. And I think that, you know, when you're only advertising, you're only, you know, showing the picture of the person that bought the vehicle, but you're not including yourself in any of this. And okay, I can say that's actually my biggest mistake. My biggest mistake from the start was not including myself, in my videos and showing myself. And because my common complaint was, I hate how I look, I hate how I sound. And the guy at work just basically slapped me in the face, more or less, with this comment and said, and I'm sure you probably said the same thing to me before at some point in time too. Like, listen, they're going to see when they come to the dealership anyways, right? And so to do all these videos and do all these walkarounds and do all this content that's going to help people, and it might have my name up in the top corner, but people are just seeing it, then they're going to go into the dealership. They don't even know who they're looking for. So they're just going to go to the first salesperson, right? So I think that's where I made a mistake initially, was that I didn't capitalize on myself and branding myself as to, you know, the person who's providing you all this information. Hopefully I can be the one that helps you out and you know who I am, know what I look like. And going further on what I was talking about is really, you know, starting to let people into my life to a certain extent. I mean, not getting too personal, but letting people know I like hockey, or that I like football, or that, you know, I go camping with the kid, you know, with my family, and I enjoy that. And just letting people know that, hey, listen, I'm a human being. I'm not just this robotic, sleazy, you know, salesperson that's out just to get your money. I'm here to help you. And so, you know, I think that one of the things you have to do on social media is really show who you are as much as you are the product that it is you sell. Because again, you're selling yourself as much as you're selling the product. And I think that's where people are missing. They're focusing so much on the product only that they're not getting out there themselves. And the whole reason why you're doing it in the first place is to break the ice and allow people to feel comfortable and relatable to the person they're dealing with.
And, you know, it really is all about building a personal brand, right? I mean, I'm not going to say, you know, not for nothing.
Over the camera. Maybe people had already seen that, but I didn't see that till now. I love that.
I wasn't wearing it. I just threw it on. I wanted to see if you're going to notice.
Right away.
So people are watching the audio right now and they're not watching the video. I am wearing my General Motors Jeff snapback hat, and I'm telling you.
Thank you for the support.
It's pretty sharp.
Thank you for the support. I just got to make an orange one now. I know.
Yeah, I know. I think it's too tight. I gotta make this work. There we go. I don't wear these type of hats typically, so there we go. I'm in. Okay, there we go. We can go on with the podcast now. But no, you're 100% right. You know, you have to make it about yourself. You know, and that was actually one of the mistakes I actually made as well when I first started, you know, making content. Is I was really kind of focusing on the business. It was more about, you know, what we did as a business. And I would probably say the first 30 or 40 videos that I put out there had nothing to do with Jason Harris. It had to do with the business at the time. But that's not what people want to connect with. You know, they want to connect with you as a human. And to do that, you need to be a human. You need to put yourself out there. You know, you need to wear the fun snapback hats or the orange ties, the orange shirts, whatever it is, right? You just need to be you. People want to connect to that person But and once they've connected to that person, they're very open to listening to the stories that that person's willing to share. Now, as long as those stories are continuing to provide them value, they'll continue to connect with you. I know this, we could probably go a little deeper into this conversation, but I'm going to segue real quick because I want to watch our time. But this does go into, we were talking about value. This is something that, this is a good segue over is, I can't even say it without even like a straight face, right? Is price gouging. Man, I'm seeing too much of this right now, right? So it's like, I think, well, from when I owned a dealership, everything was just an exchange of value, right? It was, it was a value exchange from your money to the product I sold, to the service I provided. And even still today, it is just an exchange of value back and forth. Now, I think for a lot of businesses out there, they seem to forget this whole model, right? And they're like, I don't need to, if you're going to jack up your prices, there need to be an attached value to it. And if there's not, then that's called price gouging. And I'm seeing this happen right now. Are you seeing this as well? And I'm curious to get what your thoughts are.
So I'm seeing a lot of it relative to my YouTube channel because, again, just kind of focusing on the sense that, the majority of my viewership is American, and they're the majority of obviously the commenters on there. Not seeing this necessarily talked about on my personal Facebook. But again, on most certainly, in fact, I actually just did a video on it released today. Whenever this comes out, it'll be out for a little while. But, speaking to this fact, and yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that, and I don't know if it's us as Canadians or if it's just the industry here is different. Or on top of all this, I know that in Ontario, we have OMVIC, which I know you're aware of, which is a really strict governing body, which definitely protects the purchaser that I know a lot of dealerships are never going to want to step on the toes of. Because that opens a whole lot of doors that are not good. And it's, like I say, it's good for the consumer, obviously, most importantly. And so I haven't seen it so much up here, but most certainly in the States. I just uploaded the video. Well, I did the video last night, uploaded it this morning, and I've already have, 40, 50 minimum, 60 maybe comments. It's probably up to now. Mm-hmm. Of people indicating that they went to dealerships, they're getting, charged much over. Obviously, my channel's focused on General Motors. That's what we were talking about, but we're not the only brand by any stretch of the imagination. And, certainly, and it's just, like you say, there's not a value brought to it. It's a Chevy Silverado. You hardly have any. It's $3,000, $6,000, $7,000 more just because. And listen, I'm seeing this share as a salesperson / I do other things, obviously, at the dealership and a content creator. So it's easy for me to say, listen, like, this is crazy. This, I'm a consumer myself, and I just don't think that that's fair. But I also understand the dealership side where it's like, hey, we're normally selling, 300 vehicles a month. We're now selling 100 if we're lucky. We're trying to keep the lights on. Maybe we have to make a bit extra money. But like you say, I think there's got to be some value attached to that. There's got to be a reason for that extra charge, not just, hey, we can because we can, right?
You know what? But to a certain degree. Okay, I understand that. But the other thing too is that as an industry, we're not discounting anything. You're getting full pop on everything. And yes, maybe you're not selling 300 units and you're only selling 100, but you're selling 100 at full list.
Fair enough.
Right. Yep. So I know I hear dealers say that, but I'm going to use my Badger voice. I've seen your P&L. I know you got the money. Like come on. I think enough's enough. I think the dealerships that are doing that don't see the lifetime value of having that customer. All right.
Yeah.
And what I have customers out there that are paying full pop. They're happy as hell, and they're telling their friends how happy the experience was. And they're bringing more customers in that are going to be willing to pay full pop, instead of like, how many customers that have paid $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000 in some cases over list is going to go out there and say, oh man, let me tell you about the truck I just bought. I paid 15 grand over price and whew, I feel good about it. You should go check out that dealership. Like, come on. That's just not happening. No, we're focusing as an industry. We're focusing on one transaction. Sorry, what were you saying? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I have no problem with the MSRP aspect. And in fact, I said that in the video I did. It is what it is. I mean, I can't go into Best Buy and negotiate the price on the TV that's there. That's the MSRP. If it's on sale, great. But I can't say, I see it's $500, but I only want to pay $300, or whatever it is. I don't have that luxury of doing that. So why are we any different? And I also am seeing this from a salesman's perspective where, the manufacturers are cutting the gross profit, on vehicles. I'll use a Chevy Equinox as an example. It's more razor thin than it's ever been. So it's not like we have this flex of a lot of money to discount these things unless the manufacturers are giving it to us anyway. So MSRP is going to be the norm, I think, regardless of what happens in this industry, simply because we all have to be at a bit of an equal playing field, and we're all advertising to the same customers, and the world is shrunken down because of the internet. So whether you have a dealership that's 5 hours away or 3 hours away, we all have to kind of be advertising the same price. So, but as far as, the overcharging, that's just getting enough. In fact, actually, I work, the dealership I work for, fortunately, has not done that, and we sell things like Corvettes, and we're in Northern Ontario. I literally could probably sell 10 to 15 Corvettes a year up here, and we get allocated 2 or 3, sometimes 4 maybe. And so you think that we have every right to want to ask more for those vehicles? We don't. And part of the reason why don't we? Well, first of all, because it's just not how we operate. But secondly, as you just said, from the longevity standpoint, why would we do something like that? Clearly the person that's buying that Corvette is a good customer, right? Of course. You don't just go buy $100,000 plus car and not probably have some other vehicles, especially if you live in Northern Ontario. That's not the car you're driving all year round, right? So, and you have family and you have friends. And so if we're going to overcharge on everything or on the vehicles we have now, do you think that customer is ever going to recommend us, ever going to want to come back to us when the world does right itself and we do have inventory that we're trying to move, whereas we're not trying right now because we're just trying to get it? That's going to hurt us in the long run. And General Motors is even taking that approach where just recently, Steve Carlisle, the vice president of GM North America, came out with a letter to the dealerships. Now, I don't think we got it here in Canada, but I've been privy to it. I've seen the letter, and at least dealers in the United States. And let's be honest, again, I want to also say that this is not a blanket thing. This is not everybody doing this. This is, select dealerships that are basically saying, listen, you guys cannot be doing this anymore. There's certain things you're doing that could be breach of contract, so on and so forth. And so I think General Motors, and I think there's one other brand I don't even want to talk about because they're a competitor, but, that we're taking, General Motors as a company is taking a positive approach on this and saying, listen, just because there's only going to be so many Silverado EVs or Corvette Z06s, it doesn't mean that you should be able to charge to the moon for these things. And we're going to try and, penalize you if you attempt to do this. And I think that a lot of dealerships are not going to want to hear that. But I think from a consumer perspective, that's a great thing.
Well, you know what, though? It's funny that you say the dealerships don't want to hear it, but it's short-sightedness. All right. It's not focusing on what's good for your business long term. I honestly think it is certain management that really has probably no interest in being around at the dealership for longer than 18, 24 months as it is anyways, and it's just going to take what they can and then just kind of move on. Right. I think it's a horrible strategy. I think these are times like these are opportunities where you could truly build brand loyalty and brand equity, and you don't have to do anything too crazy. Right. So I just bought a pickup recently. And
is that what you call that?
It's a pickup. All right, it's a toy. Thanks.
No, because I know what you bought, and I'm just asking, is that what you call that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna call it a pickup. It's called a pickup. It's not a truck. It's not a truck. It's the smaller version of it. It's a pickup.
I know. I'm bugging you. Yeah.
But you know what though? I decided to approach this particular product as a customer, not as someone in the industry, right? So, instead of using my contacts, which I could have easily done, right? Could have easily just said, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for, and it would have been boom, 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 boom. It would have been done. I said, no, I'm going to approach this as a customer. I'm going to reach out to dealerships I have no contact with, no connection with, never done business with. And I want to see what happens. And boy, was it bad. I can't tell you how much
price increases. Were there price increases on it?
You know what? No, there wasn't price increases, but a lot of it was bait and switch. So, they'd market a vehicle and say, yeah, we got it, come on in. And then come to find out they didn't have it. It was with that, I can't do it, 3 dealerships. Oh, man, you know what? That just sold. But I can factory order you something. So what they were doing is they were using the inventory as a bait and switch so they can get into a factory order. That rubbed me the wrong way, right? Finally found a dealership that did have it in stock. And, even when I got there, so I didn't ask for a discount. I didn't do any of that stuff. I'm paying full pop, whatever it is, right? I get there and they tried to jam me with extra fees and then tell me I have to pay for them. All right, now
not knowing that your way around the industry. Yeah.
I'm like, I said, go get your manager for me. and ask him if he knows anything about OMVIC. That's a governing body for anyone out there watching. And dude, you know what the funny thing? And it was like, it turned into a full blown conversation of like, well, I'm doing it because I can. I'm like, I cannot even believe that you're admitting this right now. Yeah. You're like, you had a salesperson lie straight to my face saying that I don't have an option. I have to pay for this because it's pre-registered to the vehicle. And we all know that's not 100% true. Anyways, I digress. But I'm not just saying price gouging is the only thing that's happening bad out there. There are a lot of other bad practices that are happening right now. But I think that what it is we're seeing in the industry, we're seeing the real operator. We're seeing the cream rise to the top. You see the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what bothers me the most about this? I might get on a side tyrant here for a couple seconds. Sure. But what bothers me most about this is we talk as automotive professionals and salespeople and dealer principals so often about, man, we just got to shake this, this stigma that we're these, crooks and we're out there. I feel like we're going 13 steps back right now with what's going on. I felt we were finally, especially with social media, and like I said, getting ourselves out there and humanizing ourselves a bit. We're totally shooting ourselves in the foot and putting ourselves backwards with exactly what you just said, the whole bait and switch thing, the thing where I can do it if I want to, or this is what you have to do, and we find out you don't have to do it, man, that's frustrating. So absolutely, I think that the dealerships who are going to have the integrity to call it like it is, or that are going to look at the big picture and say, listen, yeah, we're not going to we're making good money, but we're not going to make as much money right now as we potentially could, but in the long run we are, right? And so yeah, I definitely see that there's going to be when this all comes out in the wash, I think there's going to be a difference in the dealers who didn't do this.
I'm with you. I think there's going to be a correction. I think there's going to be a correction of of people in the industry that probably may have shouldn't have been, and you've already seen some of that correction already kind of happen, over the last 24 months as it is anyways, because most dealerships are operating now with less staff. They're able to do more with little, and I think for some of the really good operators out there, and there are some amazing operators out there, by the way, that they've kept the right staff around, and I think some of the other ones are going to learn that maybe they didn't. But, the one thing I found really interesting going through this journey, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit, was the communication. I figured maybe, and this is just maybe me having assumptions and being an ass for having assumptions, is that, since there isn't a whole lot of inventory, since things are a little quieter and a little bit slower, I just assumed that there would just be a much higher level of communication over the 12 dealerships that I reached out to. Boy, was I surprised how bad it was. I'm like, there's nobody coming in the dealership. You don't have any cars. And the communication was so atrocious, it blew my mind. I mean, you think about this, and then I want to get a few questions. I give you my name, my phone number, my email address, all right? My first name, my last name, my blood type, my shoe size, my firstborn. I give you all this stuff just so I can get an autoresponder from you. And then 24 hours later, someone else sends me an email, asks me to call them. And then I called them just for them to ask me to come in. Like, I'd love to get your thoughts on, the current state of lead communication and where you think we should be.
Well, I have to come to the defense of the dealership a little bit on that one. And that is the fact that I can see firsthand myself that although we don't have the inventory and it seems like we're doing nothing, it is taking me 5 times as long with every consumer than it normally would, basically. And I have a list right now that I can go down and talk about people I'm trying to find trucks for. So normally if I had the inventory out there, I'd be getting the truck, boom, 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 it's done. Right now I'm trying to find it. Is it sold? Can I get this feature in it? So like all these processes, I will say, are taking longer. Does that justify the lack of communication? Absolutely not. But I do, just like I say, I want to come to the defense of salespeople out there, because there is a lot of legwork that I think isn't being totally seen right now.
No, and I get that. And if that's communicated to the customer, I think the customer is totally understandable. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, so the communication. So I agree with you. So interestingly enough, what I'm doing at the dealership right now is just a little bit of about everything. So as of about halfway through last year, I took over, I took a different position in the dealership. So I'm still a salesperson, sell to about 15% of the people, close friends, people I've sold a lot of vehicles to in the past who don't want to deal with anybody else, specifically family, whatever. And then the other 75% of the time, 85% of the time, I'm doing any and everything else. So if a person is sick, I'm doing delivery for them. If there's a customer that has questions on something, I can help them. But I also took over because our BDC, we only have one BDC. We're again, a smaller dealership. So we have one person working in our BDC right now. And she left. So I took that over for a couple of months and did the BDC myself. And I definitely had my eyes open to a lot of things, because as salespeople there, we weren't getting any of the leads unless it was given to us after it had been filtered. And so I dealt with that. And I also trained the young lady who's doing it now. And, one of the things that, yeah, exactly. It just ticked me off. We don't do that bait and switch thing. Do we have it? Yes. Do we have it? No. As simple as that. But here's your options, A, B, C, D, and E, whatever. Maybe we're bonus because we're in a captive audience. So it's not as easy for somebody just to skip and go somewhere else. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to maybe admit that that's a little bit of it. But, when somebody communicates with you via text on there or via email and they don't give you a phone number, communicate with them back that way. If they ask you a question, answer the damn question. That is so frustrating to me.
I know, right?
When I see, does this have such and such wheels? You know what? Why don't you come in and we'll talk about it? No, the reason I'm on here right now is because I don't want to come
exactly
in, right? And anybody I'm 42, and anybody who's younger than me, that is the way that they're doing a lot of this vehicle shopping. And we, touching on where you're talking about dealerships being able to, go with less salespeople, for an example, it's because most of us are streamlining the process and knowing what we're getting into before we get there. So we don't need 15 salespeople. We only need maybe 7 or 8 because we're doing all our research online, provided that dealer is answering the questions properly and not continually saying, come on in, or I'll give you a call. No, again, I don't even know why I have a phone sometimes, unless it's a customer. I don't answer it half the time, right? Like, text me
That's
first.
a really good point, right? I mean, I think, you have to meet the customer where they want to be met, right? And,
1,000%.
and that's, so like, everybody knows that, if you send me an email, I'll probably get responded to within 24 hours, maybe longer, depending what's going on, but it's 24 to 48 hours, right? If you call, I'm the same way. I don't answer my phone. I let that thing go to voicemail. It transcribes it. It pops up for me. And then I determine, and then I determine if it's something I should be responding back to, or if it's something I'm just going to take care of at a later time.
That's why you don't answer my calls. I'm just kidding.
No, but the funny thing is, everyone knows if you DM me, you're going to get a response within usually the hour, right? But if you text message me, if you're able to get into that inner circle of text message, my response time is probably 2 to 5 minutes, right. But I see dealers focusing on like one channel of communication or maybe a couple channels of communication, and they refuse to meet the customer where the customer wants to be met. And I just don't get it.
I don't either.
How do we?
I really don't. And so, I think that there's some credibility, and you can, develop that when you're the one answering the questions. So if there's 5 other dealers in the city I live in, or 6 or 7, whatever, and they're all looking for a pickup truck as an example, well, you can communicate with 4 or 5 different dealerships. But if you're the only one that answers that question and you get that communication going, you're that much further ahead of everybody else. If every other dealer is saying, I'm not sure, why don't you come in and we'll set you up with a salesperson, they'll answer those questions, or, whatever it is. I think a lot of times you've lost those people. Like, why do you think Skip the Dishes is so popular? Because I don't want to go to the damn place to pick it up. I don't want to call them. I just want to punch it in my phone, order it, and I get it, right?
100%. It's, we want immediate gratification in our communication. And I know that sounds horrible, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually fair to say that when I engage with a company, I want them to engage back to me in the communication channel that I want to be talked to, not the one that they feel most comfortable in. And it's funny because I think it's the one little area that as an industry we're still slow to adopt to, because I think in the last 24 months we have actually done a very good job excuse me, of creating buying processes, not sales processes, right? Like, we're giving the customer options to buy, how to buy, where to buy, when to buy, how to take delivery of it, where to take delivery of it. We're giving them options versus kind of our old models. Like, here's our sales process, 1 through 14 steps, and you have to follow every one of them, right? But we haven't gotten that place yet in our communication efforts. And I know you do that on your own. And what kind of results are you seeing when you meet someone where they want to be met?
Yeah, no, I feel like it works. Like I said, we're getting, a good return on those customers. And if nothing else, okay, maybe they don't buy necessarily. Not every, a lot of lead people are just inquisitive, but they might buy down the road because you're the one that remembered they answered your question. So some of the stuff we don't even see now that we might see 6 months from now or a year from now because that person remembered. And I think one of the biggest things we're missing is, what is the next biggest buying demographic if they're not already? The millennials. How do millennials buy? How do they communicate, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that the phone is becoming more and more archaic all the time. I'm not saying that there's no value in the phone, don't get me wrong, but when they want me to talk to them that way, when there's a lot we have to discuss and they want to communicate that way, but otherwise, again, let's just communicate and answer the questions the way that the buyers want.
That's it. That's exactly it. Hey, Jeff, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time today, and I think there's definitely still some conversation that can happen around the topics that we discussed today. For anybody out there that's watching and listening right now who would like to connect with you, maybe follow along with your journey, or even pick up some of these conversations and continue them with you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Basically, search General Motors Jeff on almost all the social media platforms. I am on TikTok, although not really. I haven't really put a lot of focus at all or effort or time into it. But majority of the time, of course, you can reach me on Facebook. You can Instagram. You can follow me on YouTube. It's all General Motors Jeff tagged. LinkedIn, General Motors Jeff. If you want to email me, it's generalmotorsjeff@outlook.com. If you put General Motors Jeff in and you can't find me, you're not doing Google right, I think. So hopefully, if you're looking to get a hold of me, any of those ways, I pretty much monitor all of it.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun. You have yourself an amazing day.
Thanks for having me again, buddy. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.